So we are going, this week's portion is Chayei, and it literally means the lives of Sarah, which is a little unusual because we only know about one life. And the other unusual part is that life, it ends. This is the portion where she passes. And she doesn't really have an active role at all. So it's an interesting paradox, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the cave of the Machpelah, which is in modern day Hebron, which, it's one of the big places to go visit in Israel because it is where the patriarchs and matriarchs are buried. So on that level, it's a very interesting, it's something interesting to think about. Before we do that, let's invite in the Rav and Karen and Michael and Monica, Rabbi Schlag, Rav Brandwein, the Yerei Kodesh, the Ramchal, Rabbi Tarfon, Rav Mazulai, Rav Nachum Mendel of Vitebsk, Rav Kolon, Mishpira Piasetzna, the Baal Shem Tov, Rav Mordechai of Chernobyl, One Soul with Yosef Atzadik in Shechem. Today happens to be the anniversary of elevation of Rav Avram Mazulai, who we always invite in, but today happens to be his anniversary. So you know what? A lot of candle to connect to his soul. Can't see it, but it's there. And as we connect to these verses, let's keep in mind this is our one world session. So we are connecting to the flawless universe, the upper realm, the level of Binah, and we are consciously or with a consciousness channeling the energy of healing for everyone we know who needs healing. Whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, financial healing. We want to channel the energy of Ahavat Chinam, unconditional love, treating everyone in the world with human decency, the end of conflict and chaos in our world. Okay, we are at verse, it's page 57 in my book. It's the cave of the Machpelah, and it's verse 88. So, Andrea, could you read the relevance of this section, for this section?
Yes. Okay. Our egocentric desires compel us to covet possessions that provide temporary satisfaction.
Okay, so there's a lot of terms there. We have a somewhat of a familiarity with when we talk about egocentric desires. That is our desire to receive for the self. We all have a desire to receive the self. If you're here and you're in a body, along with that body comes a desire to receive for the self. And that's why we call it body consciousness. You have that. You got to take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, who's going to take care of you? So it's a limited perception. It's a 1% perception of reality. We, our teachers teach us, want to transform that desire to receive into a desire to receive for the sake of sharing. It's not just about us. It's about us being channels for the world. But if, so your body consciousness is searching for immediate gratification. And it takes thought, it takes consciousness to say, wait, I'm better. What's better, $100 today or $1 million tomorrow? Well, $1 million tomorrow is a better deal. And that's a distinction between body consciousness, egocentric desires, we want it now, or the soul. The soul realizes time is irrelevant anyhow. I'll wait till tomorrow, or next month, or perhaps a year, or whatever the process is. The soul's here for the process. The soul's here for the journey. So we have two perspectives, body perspective, egocentric perspective, and the soul perspective. And our job here, what we came here to do, is what the soul's here to do. So we're going to be connecting that in a very strong way here. Keep going.
But there is a downside. Chaos and darkness appear when the thrill has ended.
Oh, that's the only problem with immediate gratification. Slight issue there. Go ahead.
The soul, however, is in search of permanent fulfillment And people who achieve that fulfillment are willing and able to forsake short-term ego-based pleasures. Abraham exemplifies this principle in the story of the cave of Machpelah.
And just so for background, Sarah dies. Abraham has to find a place to bury Sarah. That is the context for which this article comes up. And that is in this week's reading. Go ahead.
By remaining true to a spiritual path, Abraham sought out the cave through his wisdom, not his ego, and therefore merited the greatest possible fulfillment. The light of
wait, what does it mean that he sought out the cave through wisdom and not his ego? It makes it sound like he's just trying to negotiate a deal, which we will see. Right? That's not what it was. It wasn't about immediate gratification. It was about long-term fulfillment. And so part of what we are getting by connecting to these verses is the ability to embrace a process and wait for long-term fulfillment and not go for the easy fix, the short-term gratification, all the items that are around the cash register at Walgreens, false items. How do they decide what to put there? Well, I'll tell you how they decide. They're really good impulse items. That's how they decide. You don't just get there for anything. Go ahead.
The light, the possible fulfillment, greatest possible fulfillment, the light of the Garden of Eden.
Yes, the flawless universe. Go ahead.
The mystical words of the Zohar allow us to glimpse shards of light gleaming in the garden.
Okay, when we read this section, yes, we're connecting to the flawless universe. But in particular here, we are at the Machpelah. We're in the cave. This section is infused with the energy of the cave. We're not sitting in Chicago, wherever we are. We're in the cave. What do you mean we're in the cave? I'm actually sitting in Illinois. No, you are where your consciousness is. And our consciousness is taking us to the cave, which is right on the doorstep of the Garden of Eden. So that's what this section means when it says we're picking up shards. We are picking up the light emanating from the flawless universe in one of the strongest ways possible. Go ahead.
The mystical words of the Zohar. Oh, okay, sorry. During our lives, this light helps us to fulfill the needs of our soul instead of foolishly catering to our ego.
Yeah, we talked about that. And one other thing that I want to share, I just thought about it as we're talking. Today is the anniversary of elevation of Abraham Azulai. He was a huge Kabbalist. I don't recall right now what year that was. If I can find a quick answer, what year he passed away. But one of the most famous stories of Abraham Azulai was the Sultan, the Turks were in charge of the land at that point. And when the Sultans came through, and of course he was visiting all the places to visit, and he went to Hebron, and he was standing. When you go to the Machpelah now, you're in a building that is above the cave. You're not in the cave, you're above the cave. We're reading the Zohar, we're in the cave. But when you go now, you're above the cave. So they showed him I don't know what, I think we know actually, there's a little section in one of the, right above, I want to say Isaac, where Isaac's buried. There's like a hole in the ground, and he leaned over and his sword fell in. And so as the story goes, they lowered one of the people in his entourage on a rope. They lowered him into that hole and he died. And then they lowered someone else in and he died. Both of them. And so they said, who is the holiest person here who can actually go down there? And they said, Avraham Azulai. So he actually does go down, recover the sword, but he dies I think 3 days later. And there's a whole story about what he did and what he experienced while he was there. But that's also part of what we're connecting to today. The elevation, his soul, all the light that he revealed in his life also. Okay, verse 88. Rabbi Yehuda Amar, Avraham Yada, Bahayi Me'arta Simana, V'libe Urote Taman Havavagin, Demikadma Dana Al Taman, V'chama La'adam Bahava, V'chava, Timirin Taman. Umana havayada diinun havo. Elachama the yokneb the istakal mit patach le. Chad pitcha de ginta de edim taman. V'ho de yokna the adam havakaim legabe.
Rabbi Yehuda said Abraham recognized a sign in the cave, namely the cave of Machpelah, and his heart and desire were there.
And I'll tell you what the sign wasn't. It wasn't a vacancy sign. It wasn't, that's not what it was. He sensed, Abraham is super, super connected beyond his five senses. It's not that he saw a sign, but he saw it with the sixth sense. He perceived that it was a special place. Okay. And by the way, you get the ability to do that also. We all have the ability to perceive a deeper reality in every space we encounter, but especially the ones where there's something important going on. We don't want to be distracted by what our five senses are telling us. We want to connect in a much deeper way. And it's not always easy to do. Matter of fact, it's very challenging because we get distracted by ego, by body consciousness. So part of what we are getting in connecting to this section is the ability to see beyond what our five senses tell us. Go ahead.
For he had entered it before and seen Adam and Eve and interred there.
Interred there, yes. So he had actually been in the cave before, and he saw that Adam and Eve are buried there. Like, how did he know that? I mean, it's not like they're unmarked graves. How could he have known? Go ahead.
He asks, how did he know it was they? For he did not know them. He answers, he saw the shape of Adam and looked at it.
Okay,
Then
so he saw the shape of Adam. It's not clear if you knew right away it was Adam. When we are in any situation, when we encounter any challenge, any situation, any series of decisions we have to make, we don't always have all the information we need to make a decision, to size up a situation. So he's in the cave, he sees the form, we know it's Adam. I don't know if he knew right away. And then something else significant occurred, which allowed him to connect the dots. Go ahead.
Then a door to the Garden of Eden opened before him, and he understood that this was the shape of Adam before him.
Okay, what was the other piece of data? The door to the Garden of Eden opened up. Was that a metaphor? Is that a metaphor? Is that really what happened? No, it's really what happened. He perceived he was at the gateway. You know, all the books of Rabbi Isaac Luria, the Arizal, they're all pretty much all titled "The Gates of Something," the gates of meditation, the gates of reincarnation. In a lot of the holy writings, you see references to gates. What is that? What is that preoccupation with gates? This is what happens to us consciously. When we ascend spiritually, when we go to our next level, it's as if we are passing through a gate onto another level. So what he saw was the doorway to the garden. Did he go in? No. It wasn't about that. It was about understanding that if that's the Garden of Eden, then this must be Adam. Okay, keep going.
He understood that he deserved to be buried in the gate of the Garden of Eden because he had been in the Garden of Eden during his lifetime.
He had been there during his lifetime? When was he there? We see a whole story playing out in the first book of the five books of Moses, in Breshit, in the whole creation story. We see Abraham's life. Where is he in the Garden of Eden? So this was his ability, through being a channel of mercy, chesed, of being the channel of the Sphira of Chesed, of mercy, that he was connecting to the flawless universe. He was connecting to the Garden of Eden. And so he knew, that's how he knew this is where he was to be buried. Okay, 89. V'tachaze kolman distakal bidiopnad adam la ishtazev la'almin mimita begin dehabeshata devarnash istakal me'alma chamele la'ad demuvahu zimna mit aval Abraham istakal be v'chama diyokne v'it kayam v'chama nehorad denaher bim arta v'chad shraga dalek keden ta'ev Abraham diyurei behahu atar b'libe u'ute havadadir bim arta.
Come and behold, whoever beholds the shape of Adam cannot escape death. That person has to die that instant, for man sees Adam the moment that he dies and passes from the world.
Okay, so you can't see Adam and live. This is the idea, because Adam, you don't see Adam until you're actually passing on. It's one of the first things that you see. That's what the Zohar is saying. It's like we see life at the seed level. So when the Zohar says that Abraham saw Adam, that's Zohar's having a problem with that. This would explain why when Abraham Azulai, while they lowered two people down to get the salt, recover the salt and sword, they didn't survive. They must have seen Adam. Good.
But Abraham looked at him, saw his shape, and lived. He saw a light shining from within the cave and a candle burning. Then he wanted to dwell in that cave, and his heart and desire were always there.
Can you imagine, like, all of a sudden you realize, like, you're on the doorstep of the Garden of Eden? Wouldn't you just want to hang out there every day? I mean, the energy that's there. So this is the significance of the story of how Abraham identifies this cave and realizes it's the place he needs to be, and he sees all these special things going on. I want to return to the English of verse 88. Rabbi Schlag writes, he understood that he deserved to be buried in the Garden of Eden because he'd been in the Garden of Eden during his lifetime. What does that mean, he deserved? How does he know he deserved to be there? So I think we'll pick this up, but in case we don't, in the verses that follow, there's an idea that our teachers, I don't know which teacher I heard this from, but I definitely did. I think I heard it from somebody. When you encounter something that is destined to be yours, one of the ways in which you know that it's destined to be yours is that you see the beauty in it that no one else sees. It's like a level, appreciation doesn't even seem like strong enough. It's like a level of appreciation of what you have. So he realized that nobody else knew what was going on here. He's the only one. So obviously, this was something he destined to be at and to possess. And it wasn't his desire to receive for the self. This was his desire to receive for the sake of sharing with the world, because we still have it. We still have access to it. You know, Isaac and Rebecca end up being buried there. Jacob and Leah end up being buried there. Rachel ends up being buried someplace else. Pictured, an old version of which is pictured behind me. Okay, so part of what we're also gaining here is this ability to see, is this something that should be mine? Is this a situation that I should be involved with? Is this where my destiny is supposed to bring me? So part of what assists us in making those distinctions is seeing there's a fit. Okay, 90. Tachazeh, Hashta avar b'chachmata avar b'zimna tava kivra l'sara dakad tava latava limarta b'hu zimna la amar deva'elit parsha minayu ela amar tenuli achuzat kever imachem ve'ekbara meitiyam ulfanai v'itema delahava efron taman hava dichtiv ve'efron yoshev b'toch b'nei chet v'Abraham la amar le v'ha'ishata kulum.
Come and behold, Abraham behaved wisely when he asks for a grave for Sarah, for he did not ask for a cave immediately or say that he wanted to be separated from them.
Okay, so what we're about to do is do an analysis of the verses that come from the 5 books of Moses in which Abraham actually acquires the cave. So it's one thing to know it's yours and that it's destined for you. It's another thing that's on a 99% level. It's on a spiritual, energetic level, but you still got to do with the 1%. Nothing happens here without action. So we still have to deal with the action part. I mean, though it is only 1%, still have to deal with it. That's what we're here doing, 1% things all the time. So you could read this as saying, oh, Abraham really knew how to negotiate a deal. That's not what this is about. This is about Abraham knowing that it's going to work out, and he does what's minimally necessary to consummate. He wouldn't put more energy in that was necessary. He knew it was going to end up to be his. Okay, keep going.
Instead, he said, give me a possession of a burying place with you, that I may not bury my dead out of my sight.
Okay, so he says to the locals, who we'll see in a second, he says, hey, I need a place to bury my wife outside, out of my sight. He needs a place of burial. And he's saying, and I want to do that among you, like I'm part of this community. It's a fascinating, like he's not saying we are separate and I want to be separated. He's not saying that. Give me a piece of property that is within the community so I can bury my wife. That's what he's saying. He's not identifying the place. He doesn't have to. It's like we sometimes get a little anxious in the process and try and speed things up, when all we really need to do is take whatever is necessary at a minimal level and let the light take the rest of it. That's what we're seeing here. We're seeing Abraham engage in any process, not any process. He's acquiring the cave that's on the doorway to the Garden of Eden. How does he do that? He does only what's minimally necessary because the light is taking care of the rest. And we need to do the same in all aspects of our lives. We need to do what we can do and just invite the light in. Okay, Andrew, keep going.
He did not mention either Ephron or the cave.
Ephron owned the cave.
Okay.
He owned that whole field. Go ahead.
If you say that Ephron was not there, it is not so.
Well, maybe he didn't name Ephron because he wasn't present when he made the request. No, that's not true.
Indeed, he was present, as it is written, and Ephron dwelt among the children of Het. Nevertheless, Abraham did nothing to him for the time being.
Said nothing to him. Okay, so
Said nothing to
he
him.
starts the negotiation. He knows who owns it. He's not even saying anything about it. It's like, hey, I could really I need to acquire a field to bury among you out of my sight. That's all he's saying. It's what's minimally necessary. Verse 91. Ela mad amar lon amar kamad ichtiv yidaber el b'nei chet v'gomer v'chi salka de'atach de'avram ba'a li'it kevara b'neihu ben mesa'avim o dit uvte hava imahon ela b'chachma avad.
He spoke with them further, as it is written, and spoke to the sons of Het. Could you conceive that Abraham wanted to be buried among the defiled, or that he wanted to join them when he said, give me a possession of a burying place with you? but he behaved wisely.
So he knew that there was a lot of negativity there. Was he saying, I want to be, it doesn't make sense. But again, it wasn't necessary to say that. He didn't need to insult anybody. We don't go around saying how elevated we are to the exclusion of everybody else. It's not it at all. You know, he's the model of like how you interact with the world around you. I'm not making judgments. I've only got one soul that I'm really responsible for. That's mine. It's hard enough, let alone being judgmental of what anyone else is doing. But then again, he knew who he was dealing with. Because had Ephron known that this cave was at the door of the Garden of Eden, the price would have changed. But that wasn't necessary. It wasn't destined to be Ephron's. If it was, Ephron would have already known that. 92. V'yalfina orach arahacha b'amed abad Abraham. Da begin dit urute haba beha mi artab. Afal gav da haba taman. La be'a lemish'al le miyad. Ha'uruta da hava le bim artab. V'sha'el b'kadmeta. Madala itz terichle le inun acharanin v'la le Ephron.
And we learn proper conduct from the way Abraham acted, because he desired and wished for the cave.
He restricted. Of course, he wanted the cave. He knew what it was, the place he was destined to be. He knew it was the place he had to bury Sarah. He knew it was on the doorway of the Garden of Eden. Of course, he wanted it, but he restricted. So this is like a prime example of restriction in our lives. It's like the more you want something, the more you need to restrict. The more you need to actually push it away. And just say, let the light do the work. It's when we're so absorbed by body consciousness, by ego consciousness, it seems like an impossible task. But that restriction is what generates the light. That restriction is like what generates light and gives us the opportunity to invite the light in to assist us in the process. Go ahead.
Although Ephron was there, he did not want to ask him immediately. He did not ask for the cave, but rather for what he did not want, and asks another, not Ephron. As he said to the sons of Het, give me a possession of a burying place with you.
Again, you could read this as he was just being coy and very smart about the negotiation. That is a reading, but that's not our reading. Our reading is all about restriction and about doing what was minimally less necessary to let the light in. And of course, everything that finds its way into our life is coming from the light. This is no different. And so we're also getting the energy of that enlightened consciousness, of understanding that everything that we have has come from the light. 93. Kevan da'amarule, kame Ephron shema'eni adonin nisi elokimata v'tochena v'gomer. Magativ Ephron yoshev b'toch b'nechet yashav kativ misheruta demilan da'amar Abraham. Tamanava k'den amar shema'uni ufiguli Ephron ben Zohar v'yitain li et ma'rat ha'mechpala asher lo v'gomer. V'yitem begin yikaradi le yatir minaychu. Anave de la ra'ena b'cho. V'tochachem begin li'it kavara b'naychu de ra'enu b'cho. Begin de la it parash minaychu.
Once the sons of Het said to him in the presence of Ephron, hear us, my lord. You are a mighty prince among us. Bereshit 23:5. It is written, and Ephron dwelt, and literally dwells among the children of Het. Dwells is written without vowels and can be conjugated as dwelt, which would mean that Ephron was already there as they started talking.
Okay, so the Zohar is saying, if you look at the word itself, it's in the present tense. And it means he was there. So, he was there. That's not why he wasn't, Abraham didn't ask him because he wasn't there. Abram didn't ask him because Abram was restricting. Abram was giving an opening, inviting the light in, so the light could assist in doing this. Go ahead.
Then Abraham said, hear me and entreat for me to Ephron, the son of Zohar, that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he has. If you say that, since my honor is greater than yours, I ask for the cave of the Machpelah from Ephron, because I do not want to dwell among you. This is not true, but with you and amongst you, in other words, to be interred among you. This is what I meant, because I want you so that I shall not be separated from you.
So he wasn't doing this. It wasn't, again, as we said before, this wasn't about Abraham, because, by the way, Chet, the children of Chet literally means sin. The Zohar is not saying that, but we know Chet means sin. So we know that there was a lot of negativity around. And this wasn't about Abraham wanting to create separation from the negativity that was there. This is Abraham creating connections. This is Abraham treating everyone with human decency. And so again, for us, in the context of all that we do and all that we encounter, we don't want conflict. And this is how Abraham was able to negotiate, I should say, navigate the situation and not create conflict, but create a peaceful and harmonious transaction to navigate the negativity that was around them, which, was part of his test. So for us, when we encounter negativity, when we encounter situations that are not necessarily the most ethical, it's like we have to navigate that, and we still have to treat people with human decency. And that's the other thing that Abraham is doing here. I mean, is multiple. There's actually so much going on so many levels. But not only is he finding a place to bury Sarah, but he's also using it as an opportunity to create a connection for us to the Garden of Eden through the cave of the Machpelah, a connection that we have to this day, a connection that we're maintaining through being able to actually physically be there, being actually consciously be there, and also connect to the Zohar, which describes how this all came about. So, any questions about that before we move on? Okay, let's continue with this narrative. I didn't think we'd get this far, but we have time, so let's continue. Eventually, there is a transaction. There is money changes hands. And that's what the next article is about. Can you read the relevance of that, Andrea?
Yes, the Kabbalists have long taught that the light of the Creator reveals itself only to genuine seekers of the truth. Through our desire for righteousness, we earn the light and become active participants in the process of creation.
Okay, we shouldn't misread that. You could read that through our desire for righteousness. That could be read as like a holier than thou thing. That's not what this is about. This is about, and it's not about the truth like right versus left. It's not a philosophical debate. It's not debating science. It's certainly not debating politics. That's not the truth we're talking about. We're talking about the Olam Ha'emet, the world of truth, the world that exists beyond our five senses, the world that exists beyond the 1%. And that is the journey that we're on. We get dragged into the 1% on a pretty consistent basis. But we want to maintain a consciousness of connection to 99%, as difficult as that is. Keep going. Many people
turn to the Creator only when tragedy or hardship strikes. Longing for the light is easily kindled during moments of adversity. But when times are good, we tend to forget our spiritual inspiration.
Yeah, it's like, there's no atheist in a foxhole. That saying. We all have a tendency when we're having the biggest challenges to ask for help from the light. I mean, which is appropriate, of course, but when things are going well, are we thanking the light? Like, the light should be a conversation that we're having. A conversation with light should be taking place at all times, no matter what's going on. Because the truth is the moon is always full. The truth is that we experience fulfillment in some areas of our life and lack in other areas, but we don't have lack. We have fulfillment. What do you mean, David? There's things that really aren't going well. Yeah, I know, because again, those things are in potential. They're there. They're waiting for us. They're waiting for us to do the work we came here to do, to manifest that light. Keep going.
When times are good, we tend to forget. Okay, and as desire for the light ceases, periods of prosperity inevitably come to an end. This passage sustains and increases our yearning for the light so that it illuminates our lives without end.
Okay, so what we're getting here is a greater desire for the light, because the more desire you have, the more light you can manifest. I was listening to Michael Monica's podcast this week, and Michael describes soul as just, it's desire, a compilation of desires. That's what your soul essentially is, desires. Desire for all the impulse items at the Walgreens checkout counter? No. You can get those if you want, but that's not the desire we're talking about. We're talking about the desire for long-term sustainable fulfillment in all the areas of our life that we're not experiencing that. It's desire. The worst thing is to not have desire. If you don't have desire, you can't manifest it. It's a soul connection, and that is desire. The more strongly connected we are to our souls, the more desire we have. Your soul knows that's why it came here. Manifesting all those things, removing the blockages. So that's what we're getting here. 94. Tosefta, Rabbi Yossi say the Rabbi Yehuda, Azel mechamei le Rabbi Chia, Amar lo lemar mar I shamahai parshata, hech amaru mare matanita, the fair shuha b'inyana the nishmata. Amar zaka az chulakeon the sadikaya, be'amadeate the chaf hi oraita belibhon kemabua rabadamaya, the af al gav the mastimin le, miskiut maya patchin mabuin the nav'in l'chol eva.
Tosefta addendum. Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yehuda, visited Rabbi Chia and asks, Sir, have you heard how those who are versed in the Mishnah explain this portion of the scripture as concerning to the subject of the soul, Abraham being the soul and Sarah the body?
Okay, so we're coming into the middle of a conversation. It's a little shift from the previous section, but it's connected because it's connected, and it's connected because it's the relationship of Abraham to Sarah. And it's about the soul. And specifically, it's about Abraham being the soul and Sarah being the body. What does that even mean? Keep going.
He said, happy is the fate of the righteous in the world to come, for Torah in their hearts is like a great stream. Although they block it, the water breaks through and creates smaller streams to all directions.
What? So we are physical beings. I mean, look around. We're physical beings. It's all we know. But we're not physical beings. We're not physical beings that have spiritual experiences, even though that's the way it shows up. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And so the more we can wrap our consciousness around that, the more opportunities there is for the streams to break through. What are the streams? Those enlightened moments. Yes, Roshan. Wait,
Maybe.
there you go.
Yeah, sorry. So the last sentence, when it says, the righteous in the world to come, for Torah in their hearts is like a great stream, although they block it. So we're talking about the fact that we have a desire for righteousness, but we block it with our desires for material.
That's right. Our soul, in this example, our soul is the energy of the Torah. It's energy of the upper realm. You know, it's my metaphor of the potato chip delivering the salt. Like, we have to find ways to connect to that energy in the upper realm. There are plenty of ways of doing that, especially because the soul is manifesting in your body. It's just this physical reality is just so, it's so absorbing. It's so all, you know, it just absorbs our consciousness. It's like, it's so stimulating at sometimes. And sometimes it's not, of course, but that's the blockage. That's the blockage that we experience. We experience all this blockage because the default setting on our being here is body consciousness. It's the default setting. We are constantly working to see that deeper reality, to make that soul connection, to see the reasons why we're here, to see our abilities to be more empathetic, to love more, to understand more, to, you know, to not judge. It's easy for our soul. It's not so easy with the body consciousness. Okay, we're out of time, but that was a great question and a great point and a great place to wrap up with this week. So everybody, love you all. Have a great Shabbat, a great weekend.
Thank you.
See you all
Shabbat
next week.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you.